at the BRICS Potential Roundtable. Joining me right now is Professor Alexey Maslov. Professor Alexey Maslov is the director at the Institute of the Asian and African Studies of Moscow State University. Thank you for speaking with us. And my first question about the discussion that has just been had and the Russia-India Association and what is going to be the larger impact of BRICS in this traditional relationship that has been forged over the decades now.
Well, first of all, both countries speak about the multipolarity, and we try to understand what does it mean in the present-day situation and what global situation could be in the future. Because Russia and India have their own ideas and own approach to the global future, but in some points, in many points, they coincide. First of all, it means the lack of any kind of isolation, the cooperation in the field of science, technology, education, the cooperation in the field of finance and banking system, and first of all, the open frontiers and open-mindedness.
Now, there's a very interesting development that has happened. As per the Kremlin sources, President Putin is likely to arrive in India in the coming months. What do you think is going to be the implication of this visit and what is expected?
Well, first of all, Modi already visited Russia twice for the last time, and I think that's the right time for President Putin to visit India. And I think it will be at least three main questions. The first one, it's a cooperation in political fields and the understanding of the approach to the global future, first of all, in the cooperation between Russia and India and in global sense. The second point, it's the development of the economic situation, because right now the trade between India and Russia develops very fast, but at the same time we have a disbalance in the trade, so we try to regulate the situation. And the third point, I think it will be technologies in the broader sense. First of all, IT technology, the cooperation in this field, and the cooperation in the education field.
Talking about trade, and in the last 2 years, the imports that have happened from Russia, from India taking imports, it's oil imports that have largely taken the entire gamut of trade between both the countries. In contrast, our defense and military exchange has reduced drastically. What are the emerging technologies that could be the potential of a renewed trade association?
Well, yes, first of all, because of the very huge amount of the oil and gas Russia in profit in the trade, in the bilateral trade. But at the same time, I think we should find a good goods from India, first of all, not just textile and tea, but also some technology that could be brought to Russia. The second point, I think it's the right time not to speak just about trade, but first of all about the mutual investments. And it will be in much more profit for both countries. Yes, the cooperation in the military sense declined, but I think it's a mitigation of the danger of the threats. And I think that India is under pressure of the different sides. So for India, it's a tough choice, and we understand it.
Right, and what role does Russia expect India to play in mitigating the war that has continued for over 3 years now between Russia and Ukraine? Do you think India can have a potential role of a peacemaker?
Well, first of all, India is a very influential country, and it's not just influential by its amount of the trade and economy, but first of all, as a political potential. And I think that everyone should understand that it's not just a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It's a conflict between Russia and the group of Western countries that try to monopolize the idea for democracy, for trade, for peace and war. So India maybe could be not in the side of Russia or not in the side of, for example, United States, but in the side of sober sense, and to understand that right now we're building a completely new world order. So I think that India could be a kind of mean for mitigation of the conflicts, first of all, because no one needs war. Everyone needs peace. But the price for this peace could be very high.
Talking about BRICS being a potential alternative to United Nations, and that has been a thought that has been discussed in the roundtable that we just attended. How is that a possibility, and are all BRICS nations in cohesion and agreeing to this potential exploration?
Well, first of all, we must understand that in the BRICS declaration that was done, what was made in the Kazan just a couple of weeks ago, we can find in principle the inclusiveness. So it means that it's not a choice between BRICS or United Nations. It's a cooperation, coordination, and that's why, for example, if you speak about even financial system, it's a cooperation with the World Bank and other biggest institutions. I think that BRICS could bring a new understanding of the cooperation. First of all, the real respect to the approaches and views of many countries. And BRICS in this way is much more effective, much more intensively developed, and much more, say, provocative for the future. So I think that this approach will bring much more followers of the BRICS.
Talking about the Ukraine-Russia war and what the Biden administration at this point in time has allowed Ukraine to use its long-range missiles. Russia has obviously come out with a very strong statement that this could risk having a World War III. Russia has also at this point in time said that it is going to then update its nuclear doctrine. Do you think this is a deliberate provocation being done by United States of America? And also, how is it going to pan out, especially now that the Trump administration is going to take over? Trump has been talking about negotiating peace and a direct dialogue with Russia.
Well, first of all, I think that it was one of the last steps that was made by the Biden administration just to break any attempts, future attempts of the Trump administration to mitigate or to regulate these conflicts. So to make this conflict even deeper right now. I think it's a very dangerous decision because one of the Russian positions not to make the Russian-Ukraine conflict as a world conflict, it's a global conflict. But it's not Russia that moved this conflict to the global level. And right now we understand that a lot of NATO countries supports Ukraine, not only politically, but first of all, financially, military. So in the present day, Russia fights against NATO countries. So let's be true. Let's be open-minded in this sense. Russia tries to mitigate the level of the conflicts, but the decision of Biden could be very dangerous because Russia should strike back, and if Russia won't strike back, everyone will ask, so Russia is chickened? No. So I think the best way just to low level, to make a low level of any kind of mutual attacks. So it's one of the steps forward, the real peace.
Thank you so much, Professor Maslow, for talking to us on Newsx.
Thank you.
We are at BRICS Potential, that is hosting a roundtable, conversation that talks about the shared humanitarian, the trade, economic and political conversation, where even ambassador of Russia to India is also here, is also present, along with other dignitaries from India and Russia who will be talking about the shared future global interests. And also you're joined by our executive editor, Megha Sharma. Megha, my very first question and a perspective from your side to our viewers about the importance of BRICS and the larger impact of BRICS also.
Right. This summit, this roundtable that is happening over here in New Delhi is interesting because the Russian ambassador to India, Denis Alepov, spoke about two very important things. Number one, he spoke about how there is an alternative, that is BRICS, that is going to fight the hegemony of the Western groupings, which primarily include the European nations and of course being led by United States of America. There is also the question that he raised about whether there is a potential for BRICS to then replace United Nations, which has always been a prickly thorn, especially when it comes to India, which raises the point that India needs to be part of the permanent membership that needs to be given to it at the United Nations Security Council, and it has been decades since this demand has not been met. Now, there is also the question that is raised by the ambassador saying this is not just an alternative financial payments gateway that has been created to the US dollar, but it has military implications, it has strategic implications when it comes to creation of multipolarity, when it comes to a balancing of powers, which has been established traditionally by the Western powers versus the global South and Eastern European countries, including Russia. So these are the important points that were mentioned. And thereby flows the conversation and the increasing importance and the powerful nature that BRICS can potentially hold in this multipolar world for a new world order.
And also, Megha, to educate our viewers also, there's, as per Kremlin sources also, we have been hearing that President Putin will also be coming to India. So now talking about his visit, how important or how impactful will it be? And also talking about, if you can share, the relationship also between both India and Russia at this point of time.
Yes, it is an interesting moment when the Russian President Vladimir Putin is likely to arrive in India. That is going to happen in a few months' time. It was also, a juncture just a couple of months ago when Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Russia. Yeah. He met President Putin. There was a scathing commentary that came in from the Ukrainian president asking India not to have cordial relations with Russia. But India has taken a very neutral stance, spoken about how this is not an era of war and it seeks a ceasefire. It seeks a peace negotiation between Russia and Ukraine, which is, again, an interesting point at this particular juncture where the Trump administration is now going to be the US government that is in all likelihood seeking a peace deal, and in all likelihood it is perhaps going to become a possibility than something that has been speculated for the last 3 years that a war has been taking place. Now, talking about the India-Russian relationship, traditionally it has been a defense and military trade on which both the countries have built their relationship. But now, moving forward from 2022 and 2023 and 2024, there has been a dramatic shift. It is the oil purchases, the imports that are coming in from Russia that are at a staggering amount of 54 billion US dollars. The total trade that India and Russia participate in is 65 US billion dollars. So, which gives you an estimation of, 54, which is about 90% of the trade that happens between Russia and India is for the oil imports that India takes. It's also, in wake of a number of pressurizing tactics that had been used by the West, particularly United States of America, saying that there could be potential sanctions that could be imposed on India if it imported oil. But there has been a negotiation of sorts that has happened where India putting down its foot and saying that we will carry forward and take care of our vested interests, our self-interest, and thereby this economic trade that has now grown in such a stature that Russia has become our biggest trading partner. Also talking about how things have played out in the G20 summit that has concluded in Brazil. Brazil has been very hasty in presenting about a joint communique, which did not speak about Russia, in castigating Russia for the Ukraine-Russia war that has been taking place. It has, at the same time, pulled up the rest of the countries in G20 to speak about climate change and how there needs to be funds and funds that have to be pushed from the West, from the European nations, towards the developing nations for them to build about an equilibrium and allow for climate change ramifications to be rolled back.
And Mega, my very last question before we wrap up, talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, there has been fresh escalation also that happened from Ukraine side yesterday, where they have launched missiles also, where even 5 were intercepted by Russia.
Yeah.
But where do you see it going now, and what will be Russia's, retaliation, because they've got, Ukraine has got support from the US also. So what do you think will be the new retaliation from Russia's side?
Yes. So the Biden administration, the government is coming to an end. Just 3 months from now, Trump is going to take over. So this is fresh escalation that has come from the United States of America. This is under the fear that under Trump, there is going to be a potentially pulling back of resources, pulling back of military aid, pulling back of finances from Ukraine. And if that happens, the war is then going to stop. Because if Ukraine does not have the resources to fight war against Russia, there is only going to be very minimal support that is going to be provided by the other European nations. So this is a tactic that has been used by the Biden administration to further escalate the war in the hope of there is going to be escalation that is also going to be seen by the Russian administration, by Kremlin, which has already happened, because there has been a warning issued by Kremlin talking about how on the 1,000th day Ukraine has used those long-range missiles of United States of America. It has also utilized the missiles that have been imported from United Kingdom, from Germany. And this is going to risk the world into a third world war. And Russia will not then hesitate from updating its nuclear doctrine, which has again been counter-attacked by the rest of the European nations and the NATO allies, of something talking about how Russia has been irresponsible in using its nuclear facilities, irresponsible in using its nuclear warheads. Whether this makes the task of Trump administration more difficult in negotiating peace is something that we will see in the coming months.
Thank you so much, Mika, for talking to us. So yes, viewers, that was Mika Sharma, the executive editor of Newsx, who, kept a very transparent stand on the escalation of the Russia-Ukraine war, or even, President Putin also coming to India. And as BRICS potential also unveils, it will be very important to see how humanitarian, the goals of humanitarian aid, you talk about shared advances for political or economic trade unfolds, and this event becomes much more crisper and more important. This is me, Brian Anthony Thomas, signing off with camera person Avinash for Newsx Delhi.
जिसे बनाने में